Good evening, all, and welcome to another Horrific Chat. Today I'm joined by Dale and Eugene as we look into some of the cultural and moral messages woven into horror medium. Horror has been with us since the earliest times of civilization and has been available in written form since 1529. The initial manuscript of 1765, The Castle of Otranto, as far as we know. The genre has continued to evolve and grow from then, still forming an essential, if be what unwanted in some circles, method of storytelling today. It is this journey to date, and this journey and evolution that we plan to explore tonight. Evening, folks, and thank you very much for coming along for another one of these little chats. Wonder if we get called names this time. Last one seemed to have annoyed some folks, random trolls online, which was always fun.
Oh yes,
I'm gonna
that's
milk
right.
that for all
Hi,
it's worth.
Carol.
I do even remember her name. Fantastic. I suppose I'll start off. Let's give a couple of dictionary definitions. Because this should really be never the twain shall meet. So morality. The dictionary definition is principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. Then we have horror, an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. There's two ambiguous terms, if ever, but somehow, as we've seen through the ages, and it's even become a joke that this is actually a lot of horror tales are moral messages. Oh, did I break him? Oh no!
Oh, he broke. No. Oh, he did.
I broke Jane. Oh,
You broke Gene.
yeah. Well, hopefully give him
Oh
a minute
well,
to.
he'll come back.
Yeah, give him a minute to come back on. Yeah, but here's
Hmm.
two things that you should think should never meet, never be intertwined, and yet somehow they do work perfectly together.
They do. They do indeed. Mm.
And it's just a matter of scratching below the surface. What is it? What is it about people that they can't see this, or is it they just don't want to see it?
I think they want to bury their heads in the sand, basically. Yeah, it scares them. Real life scares them. Horror scares them. True crime scares people. People get fixated on the horror being just horror, but actually it's true horror. There's the true crime that happens everywhere. And people just don't want to know about it. I guess they're scared. I think they're scared of the unknown.
And horror, as always, is that uncomfortable reflection.
It
Yeah, Jane.
is.
Sorry, good to have you back. I was just asking, why is it people don't recognize the link between horror tales and actually telling a moralistic message as such, and that message obviously evolved and adapted over time as human civilization has. But why is it people refuse to see it and still hold on to the stigmas that they have?
People don't want to admit. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. People generally don't want to admit that they're basically not at the top of the food chain, so to speak. They want to think that they're the apex of all creation and that it bothers them to think that they are prey or subject to beings or whatever you want to call it, more powerful than themselves.
Fair one. And is that why the reaction then to horror is so antagonistic? Like, we've talked about this before in other genres. People can either go, meh, don't like that. Yeah, that's fine. But when it comes to horror, it's either I'm on board or complete revulsion. Like, there's no in between with.
There's no medium. Yeah, you're right. People
Yeah.
don't want to face their demons. I think that's what it is. They don't want to.
Yes.
They don't want to face their demons. They don't want to face their fears, even though they live in fear, because they're not willing to open their minds and look into the true elements that horror provides for people. and the cautionary tales as well that are embedded in a lot of horrors, especially back in the old days,
Mhm.
and fairy
Yeah.
tales, which we're going to be discussing today. So,
Obviously, we're going to be paraphrasing a lot because it would take us about 10 hours just to get through like each century of horror. So we're going to condense things a bit. So if somebody comes on the chat and goes, well, you didn't mention blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Yeah, we've only got so much time. So bear with us.
yeah.
But like I said, the earliest example, I did a wee bit of digging and just trying to find where it all began, because we know, like, Dark Ages, pre-written history, storytelling's been a vehicle for communication.
Yep.
Because
Yes.
it's not always good enough to go, don't do that. Because always with a curious, especially like a child's mind, is always why.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when you get into that why, but why conversation that never goes anywhere. And then the initial urgency of what particular message, like, this is our camp and settlement. We have the campfire. Don't leave the light of the campfire, because you don't want to explain, well, there's wolves and you may or may not get hunted down because they're cautious of this, blah, blah, blah. So it's, oh, you go into the darkness, there's a demon there waiting for you, you know, a boogeyman. That's the easiest way to tell the tale and impart the message across. Because in the back of your brain, you know that this fire in the middle of the cave or in the plane is safe.
Right.
Not all the end, like, we don't know all at that point, even in our like earliest days, we don't know, oh right, yes, animals don't know what fire is and that's frightening and blah blah blah, and we have somehow managed to control it, and animals aren't domesticated, so anything don't know, you don't have time to go into that. It's just like, stay here, it's nighttime, you don't get eaten.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Stories help.
And usually when you try and tell people to not do something, they want to do it anyway, or they want to experience, or they want to go against the grain, you know. So I think the storytelling and putting in messages in there was important back then. And I guess it's the only way really to let the world know that there are dangers out there and stuff like that, whatever the message is, but depending on the story.
Right.
Do you think if people understood this, they'd be less antagonistic towards the horror genre, or is it just we're the whipping boy? That's fine. That's our purpose, is just to be derided. Sorry, that's the word. Flip's sake. Get out. Get out. Derided by other folks. Is that just our function, to give other people a fear of smug superiority?
The function, I would say, is to challenge people's preconceptions, let's face it, unless I'm in the medical field, and I can tell you, unless your system is challenged by something and you are able to develop a response to that challenge, you'll never evolve as a sentient being, as anything, you know. That's why there's no dinosaurs anymore. The purpose is to say to somebody, you know, to challenge any kind of preconceived notions they might have, so that they can basically socially, spiritually, mentally evolve.
Yep.
That's the way I see it.
Yep.
So my question is, do people feel they've evolved beyond that they don't need to evolve anymore? Is that the current thinking of today? Hence the horror.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Very much, yeah. They don't, like I said before, they don't want to think that there's something out there bigger and badder than they are.
They don't want to know about it. They really don't. It's
Bingo.
terrified and
Yep.
senseless. Yeah. And if you haven't got, you know, there's that good and bad, you know, evil versus good, all those sorts of things. I mean, that's everywhere, you know, and people just don't want to know about the bad side of life. They don't want to read it. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to watch it. So, well, I guess that's why it's such a niche genre, because not everybody can watch it, because it brings up a lot of emotional, dark side stuff, if you know what I mean. And people don't want to look at that. Like I said, they don't want to face their demons.
Yeah.
Are
And that's
they?
the thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's the thing about that differentiates horror from other kinds of literature, is that I always like to use the scenario of, you go home, you walk in, your spouse is standing there over a corpse, and they have a gun in their hand, and they have killed this person, protecting themselves and the household. Now, that's a violation of a moral code, thou shalt not kill. Okay, so your initial response is shock, fear, disgust. But what makes it horror is you walk in to your home and your spouse's severely severed head is sitting in the middle of the floor. The response, the emotional response, is much more intense. The response of it being shock and horror, just terrified and disgusted, and is much more intense. And that's what differentiates horror, because you are deriving a much more intense emotional, psychological response. And people don't like that.
No, they don't want to think about it. Yeah,
they don't want to think about that. That's something that might happen to them someday.
Yeah.
So the question I was going to ask her, thanks for giving the more in-depth answer there, but are people doing themselves harm then by refusing to look at this? Is there a long-term consequence of the more you deny even the darkness inside yourself? Because it's we know the sort of people that they're shiny bright, and they're the ones with people chained up in the basement because they're, what do you call him at Simpsons, Flanders? You know what I mean? You could see him easily becoming a serial killer someday, just that dilly-do type stuff. Someone's that got there, they're the ones that snap. They're the ones that end up in bell towers with sniper rifles.
Yeah, that's right. Damn right.
How do we explain to people that this is important, and not just for the sake of ourselves? Like, we're all creators. I know we have a vested interest in this horror being accepted, being popular. The problem as well with something being popular is it loses its potency. God, I've just thought of another question. Right. Anyway, stop, Colin. Behave. How do we explain to people that it is important to look at this stuff?
Yeah.
And not just because it's fun and the best genre ever and other stuff's boring, but because it's actually important to your life to understand that those things are out there.
Yeah, because
how do we explain it? How do we?
The dangers out there are real. It's not just fear, it's actual real danger, and if you want to bury your head in the sand, you're not going to know what those dangers are, and even in the horror genre, okay, it might seem a little ridiculous, Scream or Hellraiser or Pinhead or Blimmin', whatever the heck, but those are like symbols of real life crime, real life horrors out there. I mean, humans are way more scarier than any demon or ghost or
Amen.
cryptid, and if you're not going to face, because horror has, well, there's true crime horror and then there's fictional horror, but it's still based on true crime horror. Most of the characters in the horror genre, say in the movies and that we're reviewing, and that a lot of them are based on real, true, or inspired by real event, by real people. And if you don't face those sorts of challenges, to push your mind a bit further to look into the elements that make up horror and what the messages are behind these, then you're basically walking around out there unsafe, and vulnerable.
Hellraiser is a good one, actually. Let's maybe dive into that, because that's a message of over excess and overstimulation. And we see it today, actually, with devices and social media, that people actually become so overstimulated that they can't get any joy out of life whatsoever unless they're getting that constant thrum. And there's actually harm happening in society. You see people breaking down. You see them, they're more miserable than ever. We're lucky enough. We're of an age where it was a new thing and we grew up without it and with it. So we can cope without it because we know the time. Probably the best time of our years actually without it. If looking back now, it's a useful tool. But that whole idea of just being overstimulated, and Hellraiser tells that exact story. Frank was a hedonist. He was always looking for the next thrill because he couldn't get satisfied. And his thrill took him, it wasn't even his flesh anymore. It was his literal soul getting torn apart on a daily basis and reformed. And even that wasn't enough, because when he came back out, he managed to escape. He still had those desires because the damage is done. He'd already tread the path too far.
Right.
And nobody's saying do not indulge. There's a difference between indulgence and compulsion.
Yes.
Where you own the thing or the thing owns you. That's obviously a lot to do with addiction as well. It's the thing owns you rather than you own it.
Yeah.
Is it because I don't know, is there a link between people's attitude towards horror and the fact that they're not listening to these stories and the way the sort of world is now? That there is so much, I can't help but see a correlation, because you can have this, like we said, we've got this, I'm the apex predator, there's nothing above me. Why would I want to listen to them silly horror stories for? Because I know better. And yet now we're seeing people doing damage to each other, on themselves and each other in such a level. Even though a lot of it's virtual, it's still having real life consequences.
It's people don't. More and more people want everything to be in their face. They want to be told what to think, what to feel. They don't want to figure these things out for themselves. They're lazy. For instance, people can look at a story like Let the Right One In, where most people will see they don't think past the fact that this girl is a vampire and that her minion goes around cutting people's throats to get her the blood. That's what gets them going. They don't want to look at the deeper meaning behind all of this. For instance, you want to go to morality. In the book and in the movie, there's the underlying subject matter of when Oscar finds out that Ely is a vampire. He's shocked, he's afraid, he's a little bit angry because she didn't confide in him this. But he's not as shocked and angry as when he finds out that Ely is short for Elias. In other words, this girl he fell in love with is actually a boy. And his parents are separated because the mother is an alcoholic, because she can't relate to the fact that she wasn't woman enough for her husband not to be homosexual. And that's people don't look at that. They don't think about that underlying message, that underlying causality of why the subjects are, or why the characters are acting this way. They don't want to look at the background. They don't want to think about it. They just want something to stimulate their nerve cells.
Is it because they didn't
in the
stick
brain.
rainbow flags on it?
Right. Right.
There's no rainbow flags fans, so nobody's like, oh, I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not. I think that's what annoys me about like that whole. And people get different experiences, so there's no one, like the ambiguous message or the different layers that you pick of what you will, and your journey through literature, media, and art is your journey, and that and
Yes.
include that with your life experiences.
Yes.
Are people cutting out the life experiences bit, and then therefore cutting out parts of literature and art, or what? What is that? I know there's an inherent laziness. Is horror the wake up call? Is that why they're like terrified of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's the genre, if any, will shake them out of apathy.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's the
Yep.
genre. Yeah. Really. That's really going. Yeah. Well, regardless of whether or not it suits a message or pushes an agenda, it is the one that will make you wake up, and it should make you wake up. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it has become a bit of a, especially from the 80s onwards, and we'll sort of go into that there, where the message has been diluted that much that it's become parody and meme and trope.
Yep.
That they're just missing the whole point. And then obviously this current thing, oh, it's because people were terrible back in the day. It's like, I would argue that you don't try and keep people safe if you hate them.
Right.
And you
Right.
don't do
They have to
shocking
learn
acts.
to adapt or die.
Yeah. And you don't do shocking acts unless you want the shock and show that it's a bad thing. Because if you want to normalize it, you cutesy it up and you make it okay. Let's go. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Castle of Otranto. The text is a wee bit old, but the story premise is quite it's quite, you know what I mean, it's a standard story.
I read the plot. I didn't actually have time to read the story. It's like 90 pages long or something.
Yeah,
And
it's a bit of a, I'll not lie, I did a bit of a, all right, okay, right, I've got the sort of general gist.
Right.
Yeah.
But Manfred, he's king of the castle. He has everything, and all it takes is an old crone to say, "Oh, there's a prophecy that you're going to lose everything. The one, what was it? One born from outside will come and take it all."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was enough to set a whole set of psychosis and paranoia that he actually self-fulfilled the prophecy and destroyed his own kingdom.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
There
Like
are cautionary tale in there, isn't there?
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
And it's like The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, which came along a lot later than
Sorry, give me
Castle.
1 second. I'll be right back up.
Certainly.
No, carry on though. Carry on talking to a good audience. There's a few people on.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
carry on. Is like the people in the castle wanted to think that because they were in this castle, that the disease, the Red Death couldn't get to them, and that's exactly it. You know, it shocks, it sends a message to people that they don't want to hear. They don't want to think that they're not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but the Castle of Otranto, even though I just read the plot, it's quite ironic how he ended up fulfilling fulfilling the prophecy, that he was trying
Exactly.
to avoid the whole time, and he ended up, losing everything. So,
Right.
yeah, I guess it's along the lines of, don't be so fearful. I guess because his fearfulness turned him into a paranoid person who ended up, losing everything. So, yeah. Was that the message, basically, Colin?
Yeah, it was just sometimes you just can't change the future, and not living your life for every day. You're going to
Yeah.
destroy yourself. But also
Mhm.
it's about coveting things, things that aren't important. Like he destroyed his own family, his wife, and
Yes.
one of his children because of this prophecy where, so what if he lost the castle? If he still had his wife and his child and love and respected people, you could always rebuild. But
Yeah.
if you are just so, get so fixated on something and lose all sense of reason, it's
Yeah.
actually funny because even telling jokingly, there's a lot of talk in horror about reasonable actions. And that's it.
Reasonable
And when you lose reason, it's funny
Mhm.
because when I'm, as you know, I play RPGs and have folks in the channel and I hear others. And when we're playing a horror game, especially when you've got like experienced horror fans and writers, it really frustrates the person running the game because it's like, no, we're not going to split up separately. No, we're not going to go stick our noses in there. We're going to find out what it is first. And it's like, just go on, hurry up. No. There's one game, it was because it's only meant to be one thing. Like, remember, this is a one shot, so go to your deaths. It's like, oh, yes, okay, right. Because when you're deep in this rabbit hole, you're like, I'm not going out the woods without like a flaming brand and 10 people around me. I'm leaving offerings at every temple, and I'm not stealing that shiny thing that's left there inviting. That's madness.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah.
And you kind of go and take that into life as well because you're like, right, that thing's led up. Not that I'm ever in opposition, but when like the police set up sting operations and they leave the big
Yeah.
bundle of cash just sitting in the middle, you're like, if you're a horror fan, you're like, yeah, I'm not touching that. There's probably and even though in reality it's a police sting, you're thinking, right, there's a cargo net under that, and there's a bunch of cannibals hiding, and I'm going to get dragged off into a cave and eaten slowly. No,
Exactly. Right.
because that's instantly in your head. No, that's not the sensible thing to do. Or
Right.
we all know the joke from what do you call it? Final Destination franchise.
Oh God.
Any of us that have been driving and
Yes.
you see that truck full of logs, you're like, nah, not today.
Yeah.
No, over you go.
Exactly. Right.
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
important. That is so significant, really. Because people don't like to watch true crime. There's lots of people who just will not watch the news and all that sort of stuff. So they're missing out on a whole lot of warnings, basically. I still get horrified when I read that someone's gone for a run in the woods and they've gone missing, and it's
At
like
5 a.m. and their earphones are in.
Exactly. What were you thinking? I'm sorry. You should be able to run in the woods, right, by yourself at midnight.
But
Um,
that's the
and not
fluffiness. Isn't that the fluffiness of the
yes,
world today? Well, she'd be able to
and
walk down that dark alley at midnight
it'll
and
never
on a
happen to
Saturday by
me.
myself with no weapons.
That's right.
But the
Yep.
reality is, there's somebody's waiting there because that's the
Someone's
opportune
waiting.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is why so many people get into situations where they are in a life and death situation. Even walking from the supermarket to your car. People don't think to look behind them when they're walking. Or to make sure that you've got your keys ready because they don't want to watch those things that
And what's
are
even worse, they're doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they get
Yeah.
run over by buses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just like, well, Well, okay, then I did try to tell you by saying, "Wait, why don't you watch this?" You know, oh no, I don't want. No, I don't watch that stuff. No, no, no. Too
What we
scary.
used to call in a military situational awareness. You don't have that.
Not anymore. No, not anymore.
No. You have to be constantly conscious of the fact that there really is evil in this world, and it comes from the most unexpected places. Like I would say, that in Vietnam, you wouldn't think that this little kid coming up to you probably say, oh, he's going to beg me for money, a cute little kid, is rigged with explosives. And as soon as he gets close to you, somebody in the corner over there is going to hit him. But people don't think about that kind of thing. They
Oh,
don't
'cause it
take
couldn't
the
possibly
big
happen,
picture.
in the
Yeah,
idealistic growth in
exactly.
the world. God, we had the same in
Oh,
Iraq.
that could
It's
be.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's happening now with terrorist attacks, and stuff like that. People using their children as weapons, So it's yeah.
They did that back home. They used them as shields. So what they would do is they'd get all the kids and women up front with the prams when they're starting a riot, so that the army couldn't do anything. And then the gunmen would come up behind and rattle over the top. No, it's the oldest tactic in the book. Or what they'll do is if they didn't want the car to be searched, they'll have a couple of kids, get the kids to press their face up against the glass so that they couldn't be broken into. People will do that sort of thing. I've seen it.
Yeah, and there'll be people out there that say, "Get real. People don't use their children like that. God, what are you watching?"
Exactly. It's your twisted imagination. You're making this up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I watch too much horror. That's what I get told. I watch too much horror. I've got no balance.
Yeah.
But we can't take the entire population of the world and train them in the military. Because then, plus the enemy would be trained in the military as well, and then obviously new tactics would be found and just ramp up anyway. So it would cancel itself out.
Yeah.
So how do we warn people? You fire up their imaginations so that they think.
Think. That's the key. Nobody wants to think.
Nobody wants to think anymore. That's so true.
Exactly.
They either think too much or they don't think at all.
Well, media has done a lot of this. Back in the 50s, when I was growing up, there was evil out there. There were Fred Gein, skinning people out there and things like that, but you didn't know about it. Now, every move you make is being recorded by somebody, reported by somebody. I mean, we're just inundated with information. But the thing is people still are ignorant of the old world and just how bad it is, whether it's 1950 or it's 2023. People don't think that there's, like I say, that there's something bigger and badder and uglier and meaner out there than you are.
We actually do see it today because everyone thinks it's the same mentality as people in a car. They're in that little box and they think they're safe and nothing can touch them.
Yeah.
And people think this little box in front of this little camera and this thing that you're nice and safe and nobody can touch you. But we're seeing examples now. There's two trends. Swatting, if you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And doxing.
Yeah.
And this is done over nothing more than somebody just not liking somebody else on even creators like, I don't like your channel because you say things I don't like, or blah blah blah, or you've got one more subscriber than me or 20 more views than me, so I hate your guts, so I'm going to tell my 50 followers hoping that there's that one person will go to your house. And you're like, that happens.
It does.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen nobody's put any books yet across my desk where they're showing swatting, and so the closest being obviously Steve's book, Stalker. You see him using the internet, and Marcus, Marcus, the character. You see him using various techniques to stalk someone, but it hasn't caught up with the horror genre yet, because like, come on, this is gold. This is actually happening. These are what should be woven into tales, so that people are reading them. Go, okay, when I go on this thing, I don't have something with my full address and postcode like in the background, because that would be silly.
Yep.
You know,
you're damn right.
because leaving reason, logic aside, there's that one person who's just going to do it because that's the way they're built, and the universe is strange about putting circumstances together. Your example, Dale, of the car park, just thinking, it mightn't be an evil serial killer. It could just be someone who's lost their job, just about their marriage is broken up. They're about to lose everything, and because you're not looking at them, you bump into them, and then that's the bit that makes them snap, and they crack you once around the head, and you're gone. You know, you're still just as dead.
Yeah, right.
If some random person who you bump into because you're not paying attention snaps because everything in the universe just compiled into that one perfect moment, where if you're paying attention, you could say, "Oh, right, sorry, step to the side," carries on, or that moment you bump into each other, and then that's this final spark that lights a powder keg, so to speak.
Yeah, well, if you weren't on your phone looking down, you weren't looking on your phone in the first place, you would have seen that person approach, and you would have got a feeling that something wasn't right, perhaps, or maybe walk the other way. I see a lot of females walking down my street with their bloody earbuds in, and it's just like, dude, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock at night, it's nighttime, we've only got like a couple of street lights down the street, and it just bothers me, So I think it really
It's
comes
for
down
blokes too, because like when I went to the supermarket earlier on, there's a little country path takes me to the supermarket, and a few folks hanging about, and if I wasn't paying attention, I need to be a target to get robbed,
to get jumped, to
get jumped, or just to want to show their bravado. Not saying they were like that, but there's that opportunity there. But by showing you're awake, you're alert, and you're sort of on them, it just removes that even thought of opportune attack.
Yeah.
And where do we learn all this stuff from?
Wow, there you go, right?
Where do we have this in our heads? If you haven't been mugged 20 times.
Exactly.
Not everyone has to be mugged 20 times to learn.
No.
The whole point of the horror story is that you don't get mugged 20 times, because there's a true crime story about a serial mugger who then took it a bit too far and decided to keep his victims as well as the cash. The robbing was just a mechanism to got whatever it is out of their system, and unfortunately people who didn't pay attention suffered the ultimate price for it.
Yeah.
The stories have been told.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like what we see a lot of around here, unfortunately, is there's a highway down here called Bloody 98, and there's a reason it's called Bloody 98. Now, it's that road rage. Oh, this guy cuts off another person, strictly, not meaning to do anything malicious. They just weren't paying attention. They cut this other guy off. This guy pulls out a gun, pulls up alongside of you at the stoplight, and blows your brains out. You didn't think that when you got in that car, when you left the house, that this was going to happen to you. People, unless you have read about it or seen it in the media, people would say, "Oh, well, I guess maybe I need to be a little bit more careful and conscientious when I drive down the road and actually pay attention." Because there are some loose screws out there.
What's that movie with the semi truck We've got the two people in they're taking the race cars to a show, and they cut off the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that one?
Oh,
And they're all like, whoa, 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 and all this stuff. And then 5 miles up the road, no. He takes out the first one and straps him to the front.
oh, there's a few of them like that.
Yeah, but you know the one he actually has the boyfriend, the girlfriend, they're holding the chain together. The chain's underneath the thing, and they're basically on the front of the truck. And he tells them they've got 1 mile. If they make it 1 mile, he'll let them go. But if one falls off, obviously the chain's going to take the other one with them.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, and it's just the classic of these are, young dumb people that are like, oh, screw you, truck driver, and like cut them off, and
Yeah.
person just trying to do their job. But it escalates into that. They actually can't remember how it ends now, but I always remember that particular scene because that was, that's the sort of scene that I normally go, oh, what are you watching that for? Are you reveling that? It's like, no, that's the warning.
Right.
This
Yeah.
mad stuff can actually happen, and it's done physically. It's not special effects. It's something simple like having a chain, and it wasn't even handcuffs. It was the what do you call them, bolt things?
Oh, the clip.
Yeah, just it was just clipped on,
Right.
but that's how easy it was to manufacture that device.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to saw type level of racking your brain and being an engineer. There's something simple like a bit of chain and 2 clips that had somebody on a front of a truck as a speeding along for a mile. And the reason they got in that situation is because A, they were inconsiderate and they didn't think about, is it a good idea for me to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That kind of went off on a wee tangent, the notes.
A little bit.
It's so good.
A little bit.
But that's the fun of doing these things live and having the conversation, because there's so much wealth out there, and we can nearly distill any horror story, and there's always a message of don't do that. That's not a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Anybody? Oh, there's this book. It's wrapped in chains, and there's warnings, and that looks as if it's human fleshy type. I wonder. Bird, yato, tattoo, necto,
Yeah.
Exactly.
American Psycho packaged in cellophane with a big R18 XXXX. Do not read unless you're over 18. You need your driver's license or ID to show that you're old enough to read American Psycho. I mean, of course, you're not going to get that book right unless you're a real true horror fan.
Yeah, and that was the thing. That movie was so diluted.
Oh, the movie was ridiculous. The book is amazing. The book's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole line of, oh, you think that's bad? Wait till you see what I'm going to do to you.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's people like that out there.
There's people like that living right next door.
Everybody.
Yep.
Right.
The mad world. Yep.
But let's go back in time. We'll kind of talk about Castle of Otranto. Did anybody find? I don't think you did. Nobody found anything earlier.
The Bible.
Bingo.
True enough, actually.
One of the most horrifying books ever written. Yeah.
First book to be printed. First horror to be printed. Come on, it's a horror, right? But yeah, no, you're right. Like the Grimm brothers, of course.
They obviously they were well after. But this is where we're having a wee bit of a discussion on terminology, because what I'd got was, and it was always my notion, that they had actually taken folklore and put it into written word. And I'd said adaptation, but Dale, you're saying retelling.
Retellings, yes.
So is this a thing where terminology is really important? Does it change the whole context of?
It does. It does change the context of things, because people will think, well, okay, the Grimm brothers actually wrote those fairy tales. Well, when in actual fact, they weren't originally their fairy tales. They retold them. And it's not stealing and it's not plagiarism. When you are retelling, a whole shitload of research goes into making a retelling of a story. So the Grimm brothers, they would have grabbed a manuscript from, say, a Japanese person's folklore and then translated it into English or German or whatever.
Yeah, they were Germans. These were all
they were German.
translated into German originally.
Yeah. So it's a lot like Hans Christian Andersen as well. He did the same thing. So the Grimm brothers had like 200 stories in their book, in one volume, whereas like Hans Christian Andersen had 156 retellings in over 9 volumes. So it goes to show just how many fairy tales there were out there.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, these were all passed orally.
Yep.
And there weren't because there's also, this is something that really infuriates me, especially about the writing community. And actually, I won't even say community, I'll say writing bitch fest, because you're not a real writer if you haven't got all these accolades. Some of the longest standing stories are told in villages by just the village elder or somebody that passed it down. It was just made up on the spot. Some of the longest long-standing music was made up in tribes with just skin on a few bones and a whistle, and that was it. It was just for the pure joy of it.
Right.
We're in this point of people are trying to gatekeep creativity.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily doing a better job. And I think that's a danger in itself as well, because then you're losing the spirit of the stories being created, because all these preconditions are being set. So therefore you're actually stifling people's imaginations, because one of the things this, as you know, with this channel is like, create more creators, use your imagination. It doesn't have to be monetary value. You don't have to make a living from it. But for your own sanity, to organize your place in the world and to learn right from wrong, to internalize it in your brain, use your imagination, make up stories.
Yep.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
These guys that took, well, we can now look back and go, they performed a very useful function, because a lot of these tales could have been lost.
Yeah.
They have been along the way.
I'm sure they've only captured, you think of the scope and breadth of human imagination, where it's easy to pan on the human race. This current nihilism of we're a disease, I thought like I was like 15 and hadn't like my zits were still not all popped yet. You know what I mean? That's fair enough. Yeah. That's called hormones. When you grow up a bit, you kind of get over that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people
you hope to get over it.
Well, I still don't get on with most people. I'll not lie. Like day to day, a lot of people just don't interest me. I can't be bothered with their nonsense.
Yes.
But I don't hide the fact. So therefore, when I do meet people that I actually get on with, I cherish them more. And that's made me a happier person, to be honest. Because I'm not looking for the masses. I'm looking for those meaningful connections, which...
Oh, absolutely. And I've made so many great connections in the horror world that I missed out on all those years. All those years. I had to hide the fact that I loved horror. That I had to hide it from people, when it was just like, finally, I found a group of people that it feels like a family, it feels like a community, and we're all weirdos and we're all freaks and we're all freaking hot bags and we love it.
And we're all different. We don't have to wear the uniform. You know what I mean? We all don't look the same. No. We don't all think the same. We've all different moral values. We've all different moral compasses.
And society doesn't like that. They want to pigeonhole everybody. They want everybody to wear the same uniform. They want everybody to be just basically just another version of themselves.
Clones.
Yeah, which is boring.
Yeah.
If I was the only person I talked to was me, I'd get bored very quickly. You know what I mean? That's where I like interacting, because if it was just, I know some people do, they've got that narcissistic tendency that them in front of the camera and their voice and nobody jumping in, that's the best thing ever. But it's like, I'd fight with me. If it was like another one of me, and that's all I had to interact with the world, we'd be fighting. Me and me would be just at each other's throats, because having to suffer arsehole at times.
Yep.
And I know it.
Yep.
But horror's helped me realize that, because I know when you can go too far, and it's like it'd be so easy to retreat in that little bubble. But I've read about the person locked up in the tower that's went solely insane. I've read Lovecraft, and when you just have nothing but your mind and the horrors of the world, and that's all you focus on, I've seen the insanity it can drive. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I purposely
Oh.
make a point of talking to other human
Like-
beings, because if you don't, you'll...
Yep, you can get lost. You can get very isolated, especially, you know, as writers, we can get very isolated very quickly, and
Yes.
fall into that bubble of, this is my safe place, you know, and then when reality, it's not really, you know, it's just your house.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you try and make it as
Right.
safe as possible.
It just
but
takes
you can't-
one knock on the door for your world to fall apart.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
One knock on the door, and that's it. Your
Exactly.
bubbles burst. And that's when we talk about morality, there's two types of morality. There's group morality, and that's what helps society function. That's where let's not devolve into chaos. But you've also got your own personal morality, where
Yes.
you
Mhm.
know it doesn't matter what 100 people think. You know there's a certain point you will not cross on, and it's
Yep.
a whole range of things. We could sit and talk for what we'll have done, and we've all found those different bits. I think that I would go where you wouldn't, and vice versa, and that's the
Individual.
joy of the human experience.
Yeah, we have free will. We have free choices. We make our own. We create the world we live in.
Yep, and then you
Yeah.
deal with the consequences when it goes wrong. You take the
Yep.
adulation when it goes right, and you always look
Yep.
to improve if you're thinking, and you learn from past experiences so you don't repeat or maybe step into something worse.
Yeah.
The people maybe forget that the moral message isn't just about operating the society, but also not doing harm to yourself.
It's supposed to be.
Well,
right?
It's like in Romans chapter 2, verse 4, Paul says, even those that don't know the law, which in this case refers to the law of Moses, instinctively abide by the law. They practice the law instinctively. And what he was saying is that everyone is born with a God-given sense of right and wrong. But as basically, when you leave the womb and start going out into the world, that's your conscience and your own personal set of morals. And if you don't nurture that, if you don't take care of that, you lose your conscience. You lose your sense of right and wrong. It's basically, hey, every person for themselves, I'm going to do what feels good for me. And society, when you enter into society, society says, no, you want to be amongst us, you want to be a part of this society, this tribe, this group, you got to obey the laws. And the laws are derived from that original conscience of right and wrong. And that's basically what you're saying, is that, you know, we all know what's right from wrong. It's just, what do we do with it? You know, do we ignore it?
Because I don't think people are inherently born evil as
No.
such. I
You
think
have
there's
a right to choose.
Yeah, there's a lot of nature versus nature stuff going on there. You know, it depends the environment you grow up in. It depends on what you're reading, what your parents are letting you absorb on the internet, or, you know,
Right.
social media, and all those sorts of things is getting in the way. I think it's getting in the way of our children. It's interfering majorly, because, you know, we all grew up with Cinderella and Rapunzel and Snow White and all those, you know, but we didn't get to see the Grimm brothers' interpretation of fairy tales. You know, the happily ever after. Well, the Grimm brothers took that away and decided to kill the frog, or decided to kill the king instead of letting the king ride off on a horse and go and, play happy families over there. No, we're going to kill off the king, and that's awesome. I think that's really awesome. But then there's a whole load of generations of people who've grown up over 200 years with these folk tales that have gone from children's stories to adult stories, back to children, and now it's back to horror again. It's kind of gone like this, but I think that it's really important that each of them did have some sort of message. Most of them did. Some of them didn't. Some of them I still cannot get my head around. Why the hell? But
something. Obviously, I've got a few examples of the Grimm fairy tales and what their messages are. The more sort of overt ones. Flipping now, I didn't have time to read all the stories over again. I can remember the sort of premise, but I was going to say, all stories though don't need to have a moral message. Is that another danger? Looking for a moral message in everything?
No, I think it is a danger because not every horror story
or story,
movie. I don't think they do have to have a moral story nowadays. I think it's more for entertainment purposes. But then I think there are, if you are going to sit down and willing to watch something, there is going to be something in there that you will find possibly relatable, like not walking through the bush at night, or not crossing train tracks, or don't play with Ouija boards. There's a potential for it to have some sort of message.
Mm-hmm.
It's not important. It's not a prerequisite.
Yeah.
To write horror.
What I'm trying to, I'm just sort of formulating. Like, that's another off the cuff question, but is the act of looking for a moral message in everything, is that a danger in itself, that you're forgetting to just live? And then we've also seen, it's the stern into the abyss sort of thing, that we've seen those people that get twisted by moral messages and they become the very creatures that they're looking to avoid. Because it's actually starting this podcast changed my mind about true crime and talking like to yourself, Dale, because my original preconception were, the idiots that write the serial killers and when they're on death row and profess their love to them.
Yeah.
That's what I associated true crime with, that fandom. Those absolute muppets. Yes. I'm not, I've had perceptions. I've had prejudice. So when I thought of the true crime genre, that's what I directly associated with, were those sort of lunatics that wrote the serial killers in jail, professing their love, and what do you call that idiot? The one that got married. Ted Bundy.
Richard Ramirez.
No, Ted Bundy. He got married. They made a whole show of it in court.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I associated a true crime fan with. That sort of like disturbed individual. And that's what I'm saying about looking for the moral message, because some people twist that up and they're looking for their excuses. And then they become that sort of fan person that writes the serial killers because they see the good in them, and the thing in the work is. Do we have examples of warning you against that?
Pardon?
Do we have examples in horror of warning you against that? I'm trying to think off the top of my head here.
Or
have I just thought of my next book?
Yeah, I think that I think I know where you're going with this, is that people lately, with a lot of you go back to the 30s, you go back to even further than that. Generally, people like the idea of good winning out over evil.
Yeah.
And a lot of these stories and films that we are seeing these days, evil actually wins. And I think that is more of a mechanism to keep people coming back to read those books or to watch those films. It's keeping them coming back along with their money. It's a money-making proposition because they're planning that these people, they want to see good win. And they'll keep coming back hoping that maybe in sequel number 5 or 6, good will actually win out. I mean, that's the way I see it.
They did that brilliantly with Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
Say again?
They did that brilliantly with the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, they did. Yes,
because
they did.
even in part 6, Freddy's Dead, they took it right back to how he became a demon. And then even in part 7, the fact that Freddy wasn't actually Freddy, he was a demon himself. And that was that demon. It wasn't Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger was just the skin suit the demon was wearing.
Very good.
And got it right back to actually, we had to get the right to the source. I don't know if it was intentional or not because Wes Craven's so flaky when it comes to his sequels, but
oh my, yeah.
I just watched, I reviewed The Hills of Eyes 1 and 2 there, and yeah, my brain hurts. Yeah, my brain actually hurts from watching those. Wes Craven at his finest. Just cheesy. I love the man still, you know what I mean? He was a formative part of my teenage angsty years and introduced me to horror, but God, he's a cheesemonger. Let's go through some of these grim fairy tales. Let's we'll sort of chat about them. Like I said, I'd put up a couple here. I think he didn't disagree with the sort of analysis on them. So first of all, Rapunzel. This Rapunzel's story was wasn't it who locked her up in the tower? Was it the stepmother? It's always the stepmother, isn't it?
No, the old witch next door.
It was the old witch, right?
Yep, that the husband was the dad. The dad from next door was stealing. What's it called? Rapian? Oh,
Rapeseed, is it the
Rapian? Espion. Yeah.
So it was what? So he carried out the act of stealing, which enraged the witch, because there's that don't steal, but also don't steal from a witch. If you know someone's a witch, you know they're powerful. Don't mess with someone more powerful than you.
Exactly.
Right.
Of course, the easiest thing for the witch to do would have been to take him out, but she wanted to punish him.
Yep.
Right.
So what better way to punish someone than torture someone that he loved?
Yep.
Because that's going to remain in his mind. Because you had something to say about this, Dale. I'm interested because I think this is where we sort of maybe don't agree on a lot of these old stories. I don't think they're anti-women or anti-feminine energy because we have sympathy. If it was his son and he locked him in a tower, people wouldn't have the same resonance even today.
Damn right.
You wouldn't have the same, you know what I mean? Because a man can deal with it, but because it was the daughter, straight away we're like, no, that shouldn't happen. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So by a lot of, like you said, a lot of the damsels in distress are women, but that's natural instinct is to protect women, you know, and that's what's sort of being forgotten today. I think women are being done a major disservice today, and harm's been done to them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, okay, I am.
No. Let's do it because that's
tale mythology folklore course. So it's drawn the feminism out of me from my 20s, and now it's so. But okay, so a lot of the characters make. The women are used, they're abused, they're locked in towers, blah, blah, blah. But we have to also consider that back in those times when these books were written, that's basically how people saw females, as damsels in dress. As the princess is the real princess is somebody who's black and blue and bruised, you know. But you know, Hans Christian Andersen did the same thing with his female characters as well. But Hans Christian Andersen had major mental health problems. He was sexually confused. So we've also got to think
He's
about
a writer
both.
I'm happy to forget, to be honest, because he's never made an impact on me.
No,
So
no, yeah. Oh, but don't get me wrong, because I absolutely love reading. Not so much Hans Christian Andersen, but Grimm Brothers. I love reading them because they are different, because they do kill off the main character. They do things. They do go against the happily ever after.
Which obviously had to be diluted down in the 20th century to make it palatable, because this is where the stepping away, oh, you don't want to look at that nasty horror stuff, came in, where we're seeing now it's actually doing harm to people. And that's kind of the whole point of this conversation, is to see that. But Rapunzel, would the story have had the same impact if a son had been taken and locked up in the tower?
No, but there are retellings of it being a male.
Yes.
You know, so there are retellings of.
My question is, those emotions, because first of all, the father did wrong, so he should have been punished, yes. And this is where the ambiguousness of, you know, is a witch generally classed as a good person in these stories?
No.
Yeah.
Never.
And somebody powerful who will mess with you and mess with you in the worst way possible. Hence the warning is, don't mess with a witch.
Yep. Or you don't know who your neighbors are. You don't know if you're going around stealing, you don't know who you're stealing from, and you don't know what the consequences are going to be. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the big bad witch. It's just basically you don't know who your neighbors are, really.
Don't
do it
in the first place. That's the whole thing. But when Rapunzel herself's taken and locked up in the tower, what do you feel? Are you like, oh yeah, that's just right and proper? Yep, cool. Right, back to bed. So that's all right. He got thankfully, steal from witch, he'll get rid of your daughter for you and lock her in the tower. Fantastic. The end.
Oh, that's ghastly, just to have your only child, taken off you.
Yeah. So
and it wouldn't have worked with a male, because he's not going to grow his hair that long. So, you know, it works with a female.
I managed to get it down to there once.
Yeah. Well, that's not very long. If you're a Viking,
I'm showing you pictures.
Yeah.
I was going to get it down to here. Well, I was like that, but then all this part started to disappear, and I just gave up. It was actually a big circle on the back.
I had hair down to my middle. I could reach around to my middle back and grab a hold of my hair when I was a young man. Of course, I had more hair then.
Yeah.
You know, but,
we'll get the I know we're making light of it, but
I don't think the impact would have been as effective if it was a male son locked up, you know.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you wanted to retell it from a contemporary point of view, and then ramp it up. Obviously,
but let's go back to the initial normal, because this is where things have went wrong with storytelling. Everything's a rehash, remake, retelling. That's why the world is in shit right now.
Yes.
Because we've lost the art of storytelling, and we've lost the art of what emotionally charges us, and what, in a way, shapes our imagination to guide our moral compass. And that's why people are doing dreadful things to each other and to themselves now, because this is all they see. They don't see the original story. They don't see the original message.
Right.
I never thought I'd find myself on a camera preaching moral messages. I never did. I am a twisted, grumpy shite. I never thought I'd be saying to people, let's go back to the old days. I never thought I'd be that person. But when I've seen what it's become, that's why I wanted to look back on these.
That's why it's important. Yes.
Unpack, because we've seen 100 retellings and that, and we've seen, like, the worst character now is Girl Boss. That is so disrespectful to women, because they're basically saying you can't be a woman, you have to be a man in a woman's body. the girl,
know.
you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. It destroys femininity altogether.
It
I'm
does.
like
It's
women.
It's dangerous.
Even if I've been screwed over by a couple, I still happen to like women. I know it's weird. Just that part of my brain's like, yeah, women are nice. You know, even after all. But yeah, what's your reaction to Rapunzel being up in the tower? It's not like, oh, this is wonderful, is it? Oh, did I break
Oh,
Jane?
it's frozen.
I should have told
He's
Jane
fine.
I like men too as friends.
Yeah.
I didn't just say I like you, Dale, and don't like Jane. I'll be back on this. Oh, we're bad people.
Oh, God, blimey.
Right, we'll put a pin in
Oh.
that. Chris has a question here. I flip, I missed. Sorry, wrong one. Sorry, mate. I'll go back. Do you feel horror media creators, movies, TV, etc., have a greater responsibility to avoid disturbing topics compared to book writers because of the visual nature and potential impact?
Do we have a responsibility? No. No, there's no responsibility. There shouldn't be. There should be. Fuck, we want horror and we want it to the max. Yeah. No.
That's why you have descriptors. If you're going to see a horror movie, you're going to see a horror movie. That's the clues in the name. We've had this the censorship and categorization. We've had that discussion. Go and check out that episode. A lot of fun. We went on for near 4 hours there. That was a it was a good 3 hour, 4 hour session talking about censorship.
That's right.
There's the problem with movies is because it's done by committee and it's done by focus group more so than writers. That's kind of the thing. And because that happens in the shock can happen in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
With a
make the
book,
most of it.
With a book, you're getting invested in the story because any good writer doesn't just start off with chop to death, blah, 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 with the first paragraph, because what the hell's that?
Doesn't happen.
Yeah. So in a book, you've got more time to ready yourself and you have more time to get the tone of what the writer's saying and their style. And if you're not like before the actual shocking act happens, you'll have got the feeling, I think, from the writer as whether or not you're wanting to continue or whether you're not.
Yep.
Where a movie, the shocking scene can happen, like you've got a 90-minute window and everything go fine, then just throw in a shocking scene and that's it. That's, you've no comeback and it can come out of nowhere. Yep. I think more with the book because your brain's filling in the gaps. You've got that more of a sense. You're more prepared for it.
And you basically you're interpreting the book in your own mind, and you're creating the images in your own mind that the writer's trying to portray, but you only have what you've got in your brain. But whereas in a movie, you're told what to see. Mm-hmm. You're told what you're going to be looking at. You can tell by the title. You can tell by the censorship ratings and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you're right. A book, you can build up the tone and all those sorts of brilliant things, but in a movie, you're getting told those images are from the director and the writer. The team behind it have drawn all these beautiful storyboards and all these sorts of things. It's all laid out you basically just have to watch. Mm-hmm. There are psychological movies out there that do my head in because you have to think too much. I'm more of I like to be freaked the fuck out. I don't want I don't want all this ambiguity and this, drama and shit. I want it all
A24
freaky.
are notorious for that.
What
A24 Studios.
Oh, I haven't
the ones
seen
that
it.
The ones that made Midsummer.
Oh, really?
That's that studio. That's all their stuff.
Okay. That would make sense then.
Yeah. That's why I never even bothered. There was a a new one that. Oh, Eugene's lost his internet. He's trying to get it back on. Yeah, that's why we're answering these questions and we're putting a pin in Rapunzel until you get back, mate. Yeah, A24. That's why a lot of our movies are kind of difficult to watch. Just not graphic or anything. Just like, oh god, come on. There's never a resolution, and
yeah. See, people want a resolution too. They want a drama, then they want the resolution, and if you don't give them the resolution,
it's a story arc. Unless you're planning a trilogy, and that's you have to plan it beforehand. Not this make one, see what the sequel. Same with books. Make one, maybe get a sequel, and then you've written into a corner. You know where to go. If you're going to write 5 books and it's a story arc, that's what you write. If you're making a movie set and it's 5 story arcs, you write it. And then if you don't get to make all 5, so be it. But at least you've got the seeds that are planted.
Yeah.
And that's this short-minded mentality, which, once again, I think is a whole combination of the fact that people are shying away from what's uncomfortable back down to not watching horror, not taking horror for what it is, or the messages of horror, has led to this short-sightedness that all of art is suffering. Like, at the moment, we're in the worst time ever. It's just dire.
Stigma. There's so much stigma attached to it. It's just like, oh god, just break it down, get out. It's not supposed to be like this.
Chris has another question here, which actually is an interesting one. Do horror creators have a moral obligation to avoid scenes that closely mimic real-world atrocities? Is there a time period they should wait? If so, how long?
No!
That's
a very interesting question.
That's a tricky one because...
Ooh!
Who does it affect? How many people does it affect? How shocked were people? That there's no... How long is a piece of string? There's no time frame in that.
There's no time frame in that, but there has to be some sort of sensitivity towards the victims. Say, okay, I'll use 9/11, right? Nobody went and did a movie about 9/11. Who's going to do a movie about that? Nobody. And nobody wants to.
Didn't they do the one about the fire brigade, the firefighters?
Oh, they did that, but they didn't do okay, that was 2001. We're in 2023 now. All those years have lapsed, and there is that one about the firefighters. Yeah. But as a making it into a movie, that didn't happen.
Oh, you mean the actual terrorists planning and plotting and doing their thing? And
Yep.
Because the firefighter one, I can't remember who was in that, the main character, but they were telling from the aftermath of getting in and doing all kind of stuff.
Yeah. Also, the big tsunami that happened over in Indonesia. Then Naomi Campbell did that wonderful movie about it. But that was probably like 5 years after the tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I don't think we have a responsibility, but I think that you have to use your sensibilities and common sense when it comes to
having a word. Read the room.
Yeah.
But is that not one of the basic moral? Is this not one of the basic moral questions of horror? Read the room. Don't just barge in, because if you just barge in, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, damn right.
Horror tells it in the most extreme method. You barge in without checking, you're going to get taken away to the cannibal cave and served for supper, or you're going to get a spell cast on you, or you're going to run into...
Yeah, exactly right.
Etc., etc., etc. So that idea of reading the room, thinking before you do something, that's,
that should apply to real life anyway. You should watch what you say to people, because it could come back.
He's back
to bite you in the butt. Hello, Dean.
The internet gods are not friendly today.
No, they're being friendly on my end, thank goodness.
Did we not give the right offerings? Before every stream. Oh, internet gods, give us clear signal.
Yeah, I forgot to ask the angels. Sorry.
You with us, Jane? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Ah, there we are.
Fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, we just
Internet
answered
here
a couple of
is-
questions there just to get back so we could jump back on topic
Okay.
again.
Okay.
So what was this? Yeah. Yeah, that whole thing of reading the room. So understand what you're getting into. So if you're going to write a story about a sensitive topic and it's too soon and you know it's too soon, and this is where this wee part of your brain, your moral compass has to engage. And if you
Yep.
don't get exposed to the right stories that tell you what happens when you don't engage that little moral compass, then you're going to set yourself up for massive failure. So you write a story about an atrocity at the wrong time in the insensitive manner and purely do it as a cash cow. Oh, I'm going to capitalize on this, and you come across the wrong way. Don't be surprised when you get the backlash and you're hated forever.
Yep, and hated forever, and doxed, and cancelled, and all sorts.
Yeah, and somebody decides they want to do that to
Yeah.
you because they're mentally unhinged and looking for that excuse to do it, and you've just provided in the randomness of the universe those perfect set of circumstances to give them the reason to go and look for you.
That's it. It comes down to your own moral compass, and what you put out there is what you're going to get back. So
Exactly. Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to our friend Rapunzel. She's up in the tower. Gene just went. He didn't have. It's like, you know, when somebody pretends they can't hear in the radio, like he doesn't want to get involved in this, so he's like, I'm out. He's like, ah, shit. He remembered. He's come back in.
Ah, here he is. Hang it on.
No, but she's not. How do you feel? You're not like, oh, this is wonderful, are you? You're like, oh, this is terrible. This is wrong. Hope she gets out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to, people love the underdog, and they want that to all come out right in the end for that underdog. Yes.
sometimes we would like to see the main character killed off as well. You know, a bit of this, a bit of that.
It doesn't
Right.
become formulaic. I think that's your it's about stimulating your imagination at the end of the day. That's what stories do. When they become formulaic, become textbook, then your part of your brain starts to shut off.
Yeah.
Which is what we're seeing today with remake, rehash, reboot, sequel, rinse and repeat. Change a few things, but it's just there's nothing new coming out.
No, there's not. Yeah, it's the same old thing. Yeah.
And people are, so people are then switching off that part of their brain that they're not using their imagination, and then they're wondering why they're depressed. They're not feeling as alive. They're wondering why they need dopamine hit all the time because they don't have that fire in themselves. And you've seen, I'm talking like not even 10 years younger than me. I've seen people that are already in the weeds because I just came up that wonderful time where I encountered the internet, where experience before. It was not a thing happening later in life. It wasn't a thing that I've always grown up with. But I've seen people like 5, 6, even less than 10 years that if they lose their phone, for example, that's them. They fall to pieces. And I think this is all linked.
Oh, yeah.
Because the internal clock, the spark that makes you know that you're alive has been dulled down.
Yes.
And I believe horror is that wake-up call. That horror is the one that like really wakes you out of apathy, as we've discussed.
Right.
What else? Hansel and Gretel. There's another one. Obviously, tale Hansel and Gretel were always told to go on the path, and they decide no, and then
I mean, look at the beginning of that. The Hansel and Gretel's parents want to get rid of them and leave them in the woods. I mean, that happens all the time in real life. Now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, obviously it did too, but 200 years later, it's still the same thing. you know.
But this story's not
The-
portraying it out in a, this is a wonderful thing to do.
No,
They're
right.
telling it as in, what the hell are you leaving your kids are your future? What the hell are you doing leaving your kids in the wood for, you lunatics? You know, I mean, that's...
Yeah, but then that's another example of the evil stepmother, you know, the evil stepmother who doesn't want those children. They're not mine, so put them in the woods, please, and leave them behind. You know, I feel sorry for the father, the poor father who had to make that decision, you know. Asshole chose her
Yeah, but
over his own children.
once again, were the parents sympathetic characters in this?
Yeah, exactly. No.
Do
See,
we
that's
go,
the other thing.
oh, none of us ever reading Hansel and Gretel growing up going, they're brilliant parents. I wish I had parents like that.
No,
Yeah.
right.
That's what I'm saying. This
Yeah.
is showing the moral compass getting skewed and the extreme actions that get
Yes.
taken,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
where people are
So-
trying to paste over that now. And that's where I'm, you know, even me, if I'm getting moralistic and involved, there's something's went wrong. That's the point I'm trying to make. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a grumpy shite that doesn't, you know, if you're not in my circle, don't care about you. You know, that's if I'm getting annoyed about the world today and saying, actually, we need to go back to morals, things have gone too
There's something
far.
wrong with the world.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there, Colin, 100%.
This is what we've got. When I'm actually saying, I'm going, I can be good people. It's you're in trouble when I'm having to preach it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody's championing the parents in this. They might do it now in a rehash, a remake, because that's what they're trying to do. Is because like I said, that wee bit of the brain, the sensible part's been dulled down.
Yes, it has.
Yes.
But showing these extreme
Yeah.
example elicits horror. Who could possibly do that? You know, and like you said, we're still seeing it today because people aren't taking these stories and going, well,
No,
actually, it's
right.
There's one I saw, a video, and I don't know whether it was a fake one or a genuine one. And they're both just as bad if they were. If this was just made up for likes and clicks, this person's a lunatic. If this is a genuine thing, the person's a lunatic, right? But you have this girl, her mother is coming out to the car. She's in the car, and her mother's coming up there with a camera. And she's basically going, what are you leaving your kids with me for? I'm not looking after your kids. And she's like, well, I got a new boyfriend. He doesn't like them. And you're not letting me. And she's doing this whole crying thing. You're not letting me live my life and stuff. And you're like, hold on. There's two kids being dumped on the doorstep who the grandmother is saying, screaming at the top of her voice, I spent my time raising you. This is my retirement. I'm not raising your kids. And there are three kids, not two, right? And this is all played out in a video. And the girls in the car going crying, well, my boyfriend doesn't like children. It's my time now, and blah, blah, blah. And this goes on for about 2 minutes. And I'm just like, what the hell? Those kids are screwed. Whatever happens, those kids are messed up. You know what I mean? That's them.
Yep.
Like, they've witnessed this. They're going through this, and they're all different ages.
Yep.
And this is Hansel and Gretel. This is the ugliness being shown, except instead of a fairy tale, it's been done in real life because people aren't watching.
It hasn't changed in 200 years since the bloody book's been written, or however
But
much,
this
you know?
was fiction. This was a warning.
Yes.
This was a horror story because horror is always about when things go too far, when things go wrong. That's why you get a horror story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. Happened a few years ago. It was all over. It just horrified the nation here, where a young woman with two kids, her boyfriend didn't want to raise someone else's kids, so she put the kids in the car, drove up to the lake. She got out and pushed the car into the lake, drowning the kids.
Yeah.
And people were just horrified by that. And it's like you say, these people were warned this would happen. I mean, if you go back to Romulus and Remus, they were left out in the woods basically to die, raised by wolves, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's an old story. Why are you really all that shocked that this kind of thing happened?
Some people don't. But some people don't know it's happening, though. That's the thing, is, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But are the same people? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Colin. No, sorry, Colin.
No, sorry, it's lag there. Sorry, I didn't realize you'd started. It just thought it jumped in there.
Yep. No. What I was just saying was that, you know, people don't actually understand that is happening still. It is happening, and it's happening all over the world. Yep, those sorts of things is happening all over the world. But there are people out there who just don't know about it. Like you said, Colin, there's that preconceived idea that true crime is serial killers and getting married in jail and fun, you know, those flimin' serial killer fans and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, like just a couple of days ago, we just down the road somewhere, somebody murdered their 2-year-old child. You know, it happens every day all over the world, you know, and yet people will sit there and watch the news quite happily and digest the morbid details of an autopsy or whatever, or the coroner's report, yet they won't watch true crime or anything horrific that's going to give them those intense feelings you were talking about, Jean. You know, those emotions. You know, and I think with Grimm's, you know, Rapunzel, up in the tower, it's not well written, but the emotion is, oh, how dreadful to have your child taken off you because of something shit you did. But that happens all the time. People go and annihilate families because they've got a grudge against the father. You know, they go and take out their whole entire family.
Gang warfare.
Or they'll leave the father alive, annihilate the family, so he has to live with the rest of his life without his family. You know, and so those graphic Grimm Brothers stories are still relevant today.
Exactly.
But my question is, the people, like you said, they're like, oh, horror, right? The people that don't, like, you picture her that did that thing to your kids. She didn't read horror. I bet she thumbed her nose up at it.
Yeah.
And then ends up doomed to actually carry out the actions. The girl I told you about, you know, I bet she doesn't read horror.
No.
Not a horror fan, hates horror. Horror people are weirdos and sick, yet she's prepared to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the point I'm trying to make.
That's normal.
I think it's perfectly fine and normal. Where the point I've been trying to make with this series is horror has a purpose.
It does.
It does. It does. It definitely has a purpose. And well, like you talking about true crime. My wife and I watched this show here called Fear Thy Neighbor. And if you watch that, it's a true crime story, a series of stories. And these people move, it's one thing after another. People move into a neighborhood, everybody's happy to see them, everybody has weekend barbecues together. And then some little thing like the neighbor allows the dog to go over and poop on the other neighbor's yard, and then that neighbor gets all incensed, comes over there, and it just builds and builds and builds, and finally that neighbor that got his yard pooped in goes over there with an AK-47 and wipes out the entire family. After they kill the dog, of course.
Don't kill the dog. Please.
That's actually funny enough why I put off watching those two movies, because I knew that one of the dogs gets killed. And that's why I'd never watched those movies. I'm like, nope, if I can avoid that, that's weird. But yeah, uh, I just don't get this. Why people they're quite prepared to be blasé about real life stuff. I call it the rubberneckers on the motorway. I don't rubberneck. I don't see the point. If something's happening over, nothing to do with me. I need to. In fact, the fact that stuff's happening means I need to focus more on what's ahead of me.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
But I bet you the people that rubberneck when it actually happens are the ones that hate horror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they don't actually know what catastrophe could actually occur from rubbernecking, right?
Yeah.
They could have potentially be wiped out themselves.
Yeah.
By an
Or wipe out somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. By not paying attention to what they're doing. They're doing this. Yeah.
And because they're completely immune from horror and horror stories, and I don't. We've had this conversation ad nauseum. Horror's not just a slasher. So if you're watching this thinking that, go away and go back over the previous episodes. We've done this conversation. Horror is so much more. But
from guys, it's not all hack and slash, all right?
Yeah,
God,
right.
Just I have to tell you.
Just got to make that point again, because there's silly people out there. But yeah, the sort of person that doesn't read horror stories in any shape or form, thumbs their nose down them. They're the ones that when it happens for real, they're the ones rubbernecking and not focusing on what's important. Like, let's not add to the carnage.
Or they've had something really, really traumatic happen to them, and they can't look at that sort of stuff anymore. Now, I have met people who are like that, and I completely understand why they won't watch horror anymore, because what we've seen on horror has actually happened to them, and that's like the worst thing you could actually possibly think of did happen to those people. So,
which of course we brought up during sensitivity in horror, which was another fantastic discussion.
Yeah,
which, you made some brilliant points about that as well, and Dale, which is great. Once again, check out Dale really goes in depth in that. They're actually giving real life examples, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh.
When will let her speak, that was.
Yeah, but that's there are those people that are out there like that, and yeah, I guess we have to be a little bit, well, not sensitive to them, but I understand them if they want to talk about it. Just listen to them and not. I think that's what's missing is the communication between people about why you watch horror, why you write horror, why you like horror.
But it's not someone like that. Sorry, it's not someone like that I'm talking about. Someone's had a particular experience and they go, I don't watch horror because this happened to me. Someone like that you can empathize with and understand and have a conversation with. And I'm never going to go, you must watch horror.
Yeah.
Right.
That's because that's making me as bad as the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll just become the same beast, just wearing a different face, which is stupid.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's the people that are like,
stigmatizing us.
Yes. And they're the ones that usually end up carrying out the acts because they're the ones that don't get reported. It's when the horror fan does something, that's where it blows up all over the media. Oh, yeah. If somebody happens to like horror and it comes out they were this or that, once they do something, it's almost like a haha, gotcha. And that one story, and if you got, I've done previous podcasts and other iterations where I've looked at stats and statistics and stuff, and the percentage is so small of that particular person. That's why it gets blown up. It's the same reason why a car crash doesn't end up in the front page of the newspapers where an airplane crash would, because one is so commonplace and the other is so rare.
Yeah, damn right.
And I do believe that there is that understanding when you embrace horror for what it is and understand, in this case, we're looking at different aspects of it, that there is a moral message that's warning you not to do these things. It's actually telling you, don't do these things.
I know this is way before y'all's time, but I'm old. Back in 1973, I think it was, when The Exorcist came out. there was a guy that kidnapped and killed a bunch of kids. And because he came out, watched that movie over and over and over again, The Exorcist, they blame that movie on his actions. And, you know, people don't want to see the big picture. They want to just look at this one causality. It wasn't the fact that he was raised by an alcoholic, abusive mother, or a father that used to mentally and physically abuse him. No, it was that he watched horror.
Like all serial killers have catcher in the rye in their pockets when they're caught.
Oh yeah, that's banned, by the way, in Florida where I live. That's banned. You cannot bring catcher in the rye into school now
Because of the serial killer aspect. It's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah. Some kid's going to read that, and he's going to come back with a automatic firearm and AK-47 and wipe out the rest of the classroom.
Then
yeah.
Here's the question: why haven't we all wiped it? If that's all it takes, you know what I mean? If really we are that precious and so fragile, how are we all still here?
Exactly.
How are 90%, 95+% of the human population still here? We should all be dead.
Yeah.
Because this stuff, like we said, this is stuff. The earliest example of a proper horror story was 1529. Think about that.
Yeah.
I know.
We should not be. If we are that fragile as a species, that all it takes is a story or a movie to set us over the edge, we couldn't be doing this. We'd all be dead.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. No, those people have underlying issues, underlying psychopathic mental health issues, obsessive issues. If you're watching The Exorcist 50 times a day, you got a problem, mate. And of course, you're going to potentially end up being some sort of criminal,
But there had to be something that came before that made you want to watch The Exorcist 50 times.
Yeah,
The Exorcist was not the catalyst.
No.
That came before.
God, that's just like when people back in the 80s were blaming The Cure for all these teenage suicides.
I remember that. Yeah.
Gothic music, it's your fault that all our children are bloody, and he had to go on. Robert Smith had to come forward and just say, that I write music. That's what I do. I'm not doing it to get your children to kill themselves. It's just like, oh my God, there's that. That's just another angle.
People are doing it today. Sorry, go ahead, Jane.
Yeah.
Then you have people like me. I write horror. And I love horror. When I went to see The Exorcist, everybody was, freaking out in the theater, and I'm over here going, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some kind of psychopathy with that. Yeah. But I turned out okay. Sort of.
Yeah. Exactly right.
No, just not going to your basement, eh?
Yeah. Just ignore that body over in the corner over there. It's research material for my next book. Okay.
Actually, this will bring us on. There's a good question here. I'll just pull it up. So, which horror movies went over the line, in your opinion, or if none, which movie affected your sensibilities in some way?
That's a tough one.
The classic one I can think of is Cannibal Holocaust, because the effects were revolutionary for the time, and people weren't used the media, and the director had to actually go and prove that it wasn't done for real. Did he do anything over the line? I don't think so, but the shock value of having that attention to detail just made it that it just provoked that people said this cannot be. Like, we can look at it now and go, yeah, rubber, fucking rubber floppy things and stuff, and have a laugh at it. But that's the one I can think of. Like, I think I watched that when I was young. I need to watch it again. It's been so long. But I remember that one making me go, whoa, when I watched it as a young one.
I think Nightmare on Elm Street was my to creep the shit out of me. Yeah.
That's what got me down there. That's what really, Mr. Krueger was the one that really dragged me into horror. Like, as in terms of movies and that. That was the one. That was my gateway drug.
Yeah, me too.
Once I saw it, I was hooked. I'm like, I want more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the beauty behind that one was that it was all done in dreamland. You know what I mean? And
because you've no escape.
Yeah, right. There's no escaping from that. So that makes it 100 times worse. So I think, yeah.
And that was also, there's a moral message in that. Because even though Freddy Krueger was an evil person in real life, what the parents did with their evil act of burning them alive actually gave him the power. So they thought they'd be vanquishing, but what they did was their evilness gave him the power to do what he did, and then give him a reason. That's the worst thing you can do to anybody, is give them a reason to do what they do.
A motive.
Right.
Because that's it.
Right.
Once they're motivated, once they feel they're justified, there's no talking them down. That's it. You've got. So by that set of circumstances, by burning them alive in the furnace, and by carrying out that act, they gave him the power to become the demon, because obviously it was all in part 6. I know it was done a wee bit hammy, but still, the storytelling there is actually pretty solid, believe it or not, for a Wes Craven franchise.
Yeah.
They created they themselves created the monster that eventually come back and killed them.
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
There we go again. There's Mary Shelley. In fact, that's good on that. Another one. Don't play God.
Don't play God. Yeah. People do that. They create the very situation, the very person that will come back and get them. And evil begets evil.
Yeah.
Now, y'all haven't read it, or nobody's read it because it hasn't been put out for public consumption yet. I wrote a story called The Birchfield Witch, and it was based on legends from my youth about La Lechuza, which is the owl witch. And that legend basically is that a woman was falsely accused of being a witch, that she was in league with the devil, and she was brutally killed, and her child with her. Yes, she died. She got burned. She got whatever, But then that hate, that anger that was engendered by that act led a demon to come out, use that anger, use that hate to enter into this world. And we create our own monsters.
Yeah. When it comes to demons, that's something that I think that's why horror people are too scared to watch horrors, because I think they've pigeonholed it as, we love demons, and we love to, watching demons can manifest a demon and all that sort of stuff as well. So I think that's
and that goes back to the Bible.
Well, that was the earliest
horror story ever written.
The first horror story, and that was people's attempts, whether you believe in the spiritual side or not. You know what I mean? It's up to you. Nobody's ever telling you to do or not do. Wouldn't dream of it. Yeah. But that's, once again, an attempt to put on the paper a set of guidelines. Do this, don't do that. Now, it can be questioned some bits go too far, not whatever. I'm not getting into that. You crack on. I've got my own stuff, so I'm not in that camp, but I'm not gonna. I've learned over the years as well that deriding people for what they do is not good either. You know, that's utter folly. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The whole point of the horror, when you deride, when you write somebody off, when you dehumanize, guess what? Bad things happen.
Yeah.
And 90 times out of 100, it's told in a horror story before, like 100 years before it actually happens.
Exactly right.
You've been warned about this in a horror tale of some form.
200 years ago.
One of the best horror stories of movies I've ever seen was Ingmar Bergman, The Hour of the Wolf. Talk about someone creating the very thing that eventually destroyed them. The guy returns to his home island, city, town where he grew up. And all of a sudden, he suffers insomnia. If you go long enough without sleeping, you start hallucinating. And the whole movie is, can you decide if it's hallucination or if this person crawling across the roof or the ceiling, you know, looking down at you is real? And it comes back to a horrible act that he committed when he was a child. His moving back to his childhood home to try and regain something of his past. Yeah, his past came back to haunt him big time. Excellent movie. I love Ingmar Bergman. He does movies best of anybody. But that's the one horror movie that he did that was actually, I guess you'd call it a psychological thriller.
And there's a moral in that. There's a huge moral in that movie, you know.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
your path will catch up with you. So be careful what you do out there, children.
As the Bible says, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
That's the moral of that story.
Damn right.
Yeah. The old one, what goes around comes around, you know, it's that.
Yep.
There you go.
Because today, in today's age, with all this antagonism, it's so easy to jump in, isn't it?
Yes.
I have to that's why I always prep everyone. Let's not go there because it's so easy to jump on that whatever particular bandwagon. You might think you're popular, but eventually the pendulum's going to swing, and then you're popular 1 minute, then they're coming for you next. People forget that. People mob mentality, like Frankenstein. I know not so much in the book, but the movies of the mob. You know, there's the monster. So you become so terrifying and frightening and repulse people, the mob comes after you. We've got that scene, Burn the Witch, you know, Twins of Evil. God, I can't remember Peter Cushing's character, I can't remember his... But he's going around hunting the easy victims. You know, he's hunting women in the woods and burning them at the stake, you know, for righteousness, and he's got a demon under his own roof. Yeah, and then even then, because he's so stupid and arrogant, they go after the wrong twin.
Right.
Nasty. Yep. The whole moral message there, you know. Hopkins, Witchfinder General. There's another one, you know. He was not portraying his act as good. Do you remember this? Remember, I was seeing a really early one. Do you remember they had the poor girl in the wagon wheel before burning her alive?
Yep.
I remember as a kid watching, I'm going, what the hell would you do that for?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, sure, everything was misogynistic. You know, that was made in the what was that? It was before 1960, wasn't it? It was in 50 something?
Yeah, it was 1950 something. I don't know which one you're talking. Early 50s.
Yeah,
like
early 50s. So there's early 50s, a message of
like that.
burning women at the stake is not a good thing. It's not nice. You're a dickhead if you do it.
Yeah.
But there's this message today that was all okay. Everyone thought that was all okay back then. I was like, no, because horror, and that's why people are trying to lump horror into this shit. I was like, no, horror stories always told this is not good. And
Yeah.
once again, do you think that's why people shun horror? Because it is the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
If somebody's told you that's
Bingo,
not,
you hit it on the head.
Yep.
horror has been telling you, don't
Very
do
much.
this shit. It's not good. It's only
Yep.
going to lead to bad things.
Yep.
And funny
Yep.
enough, people go, nah, I hate you, horrors are weirdos. And then they go and do
Yeah.
the exact same things that we warn about by telling graphic
Exactly.
stories. The idea often being to unsettle you. Because if you're
Yeah.
not unsettled, you're not going to have a reaction. You're not going to think.
Exactly right. Exactly. And it's
Exactly. Yeah.
it is the only genre that, you know, that does pull those emotions from you, you know. Comedy doesn't, you know, there's other genres of course, but
Yeah, I've heard there's other genres of stuff.
yeah.
There's one with like glow sticks that people wave around. It's absolutely silly. It's one of them sort of genre that there's people like that stuff apparently.
Oh God.
Chris,
blimey.
Apparently.
Yeah, Chris in the chat. Yeah, there's one. Sorry, this is an ongoing thing. It's
You ain't
been
right,
going-
boy. You ain't right. You ain't right, boy.
Uh-huh. Right, I suppose we're going at this near 2 hours. But this is so many tangents. This is such a fascinating subject. I didn't realize we'd get
It is.
so deep into it, but it's just
Neither.
there.
Because
It's
that's
there.
what horror does, right? It just pulls all these emotions and gets your brain thinking. If you wanna
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch any other genre and just be, you know, just sleepwalk your way through it. But horror doesn't give you that luxury. Even the bad
doesn't.
horror
No.
movies.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
put that.
Yeah. It's like with the jump scares in horror movies, you know, you could be, you know, going along and you're just like, well, okay, this is predictable. I know what's going to happen next. And then all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
he reaches out and grabs you and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I wasn't looking at that.
Yeah. And I'm cracking up.
That is the
Love
thing
it.
that still gets me. A good jump scare. Now, I have to say, it doesn't matter how
Yeah.
many movies I've watched.
Oh, yeah.
And there's something about the cinema. Has to be in the cinema. It won't get you in the TV, but the cinema definitely. Just the sounds out, the fact you're lost. You know, I mean, you're all there. The auditorium. You're invested.
A dangerous place to watch a horror in the first place. So you're kind of putting yourself right into that real uncomfortable place where you're watching this horror that's going to rip all these emotions from you in front of all these people.
Yeah, because you're trying to think, I'm a horror fan. I'm not scared. I mean, you love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Or the guy next to you defecates himself because he just had the poop scared out of him, you know, and you have to smell the results.
I think that happens in American cinemas. I think the rest of us are okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
let me tell you. Yeah. Yeah.
I had
definitely. People don't control themselves in an American cinema. They don't.
Who's that? Taylor? No, not Taylor. It wasn't Taylor. I was talking about this. We're having talked about grindhouse cinemas and how just the actual reality of them were, and I'm like, oh god, no. And it's purely an American thing. Like,
yeah.
Really?
Oh, these people are nuts. Like, honestly, seriously, friggin' that. They just have to go. You know what? I'm gonna trash all the rest of you all together. Okay, you win. There's your crown. Well done. Pat yourself in the back. Well done. Yay, go America. Although the Canadians are trying to catch up, they're like really, they want to be more American than the Americans. So it's so funny and tragic at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The
It
Canadian
is.
horror
It's very
is
sad. That's scary. That's scary. You know.
I got in
Take
trouble
it from me. You don't want to be like me. Okay. You don't want to be like us. It's an open air asylum over here. Okay. It's an open air psych ward.
It is. It is.
That's so funny, but they're the few as we can love the bits. That's the important thing. We can see past that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we do. We're
Oh.
not going to hold it against you, America.
well. Wrap up with just a couple of questions then. Morality, is it instinctual or something that needs to be taught?
Oh, God, that's a big question, isn't it?
Well,
you go, Jane.
well, like I referred to earlier, some people, like in the Bible, say that it is part of you when you're born, and you're born with a conscience, and if you nurture it, that conscience will grow into a moral behavior. If you don't nurture it, you become a serial killer. Without any kind of conscience, moral center. That's one area of thought. Another area is that even though you are born with this instinct, this conscience, your family, your friends, the people that you grow up with, the people that you join in with as a society, they mold and nurture and change and further refine into pseudo-legalistic form that your conscience. So yes, I think you are born with it, but what you do with it after that is free will. What do you think, Dale?
Some things can be, let me say, nurtured, I guess,
Right.
From a very early age. The formative years, of course, are from 0 to 5. So depending on environmental factors, depending on the parenting or the people who are around you. But then I also think there are some traits or there are some morals that probably need to be taught to people. Like, not everybody's compassionate. Not everybody's got empathy for other people or the plight of other people. And I think in instances like that, especially if they have come from a place of trauma, they might need to rewire their brains again. And the other thing is that they can watch what happens to other people when they fuck up, basically, that you are learning that, oh, well, I'm not going to steal from the shop because I'm going to end up with a track record. I'm going to end up, or I'm not going to go and kill my neighbor because his dog shat on my yard, because I'm going to end up in jail for the next 10 years, so it's a little bit of, there's lots of different factors into that, but I think it's a nurture nature sort of discussion.
It's not just one thing, yeah, it's a combination.
It's a combination, yeah. It really is, because we've got so many things that influence us, and social media is a huge, bad one. That's a bad, nasty one for us, our teenagers and our young adolescents, they're influenced by these influences, and we should be, I don't know, telling our children early on not to idolize people. Don't idolize people. Can't use your brain. I tell my children all the time that TikTok kills brain cells. I'm telling them that so that then they realize that, scrolling and shit like that's not using your brain. I mean, that's an extreme thing to say, that it's killing brain cells, but how else can you?
But that's an actual literal horror story.
Exactly right.
You're using a horror story to give a warning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You keep on this, part of you will actually die. That's, what I mean? There we go. There's back to an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. What? If I keep doing this, part of me is actually going to wither and die and go away, taking it to the extreme.
Damn right.
to
Decisions have consequences.
I do the same thing with smoking. I tell them if you ever smoke, you are going to stunt your growth. So you know how you're this small, Caius. If you start smoking now, you're going to stay this small forever. You know, it's
was
just
that one
like
ever proven?
I don't know, and I don't care, but it works.
No, because I didn't smoke
But
in
you were
it.
given,
Didn't I told her?
yeah, you were giving them consequences. You do this, there will be consequences. You know.
Yeah. So I do use a lot of horrific tales.
We don't have to
Horrific.
even do that in the UK. It's just like, look at the price of a packet of cigarettes. Do you really want to be
Yeah.
spend that in a day? No, we are
Yeah.
ridiculously taxed. I mean, the tax over here
Yeah.
on tobacco and cigarette alcohol is disgusting. It's 300% plus, and every year it just goes up and up and up.
Oh yes.
And like
Yeah. The same way here.
I'm
Same
partial
way
to
in
a
the United
cigar,
States.
and now and again, and really now it's become now and again, like more again than now, because the prices are just like, yeah, no. And then you go,
Yeah.
am I really that invested? It's like, nah, here's a nerdy box set. I'll do that instead and make a video about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But even the cost of cigarettes won't deter some people. Some people will become homeless. You know, they give up everything, but they're not going to give up those cigarettes.
Oh, my mother's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with that. That's
I see it
actually
all the time.
That's what actually put me off, because everything else came secondary to cigarettes.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
any kind of addiction. My parents, with my parents, it was alcohol. Everything else became second to their next drink. That's addiction.
And this is back to
And
the
it
thing
might
owns
not be
you, you don't own it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Indulgence versus compulsion, like the eternal.
Oh, and unfortunately, with addicts, they end up usually not having very strict moral compasses either. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
so they could do with watching a few horror movies.
Funny enough, because a lot of the, maybe not necessarily addiction itself, but one thing it does, like Hellraiser is addiction. It's addiction to pleasure and pain and looking for the next thrill that led Frank down his path. Anything
That's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. Any story that involves power, people looking for ultimate power. The Ninth Gate, there's a good one. That's an oldie with Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Which one's it?
The Ninth Gate.
Oh, I don't know if I
He
watched
plays
it.
the librarian, and he's always looking for it's the ultimate tome, the book, and he ends up actually literally going through the gates of hell because he's searching for this book.
It's right.
Yeah.
Because it's the ultimate power. There's loads of, there's tons of tales where basically you're looking for that fix. You can't stop. So that and you end up destroying yourself.
Yeah. And other people in the way too.
But even I think that's a clever thing about horror as well, because some people don't mind destroying other people, and even that doesn't flick their moral compass, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you tell somebody, yeah, don't do that because you'll destroy other people, you'll always get that arsehole like, I don't care, it's not me, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right? But when it's like, yeah, that's fine, but you're going to destroy yourself, and then anything you think you've gained is actually, you end up in worse position. Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay then. Then begrudgingly then don't do it.
Yeah, and then it's the case of, oh, I told you so. Don't want to be that guy.
So, with all that said, the usefulness then of moral messaging, has it expired in modern storytelling, or does it still have a function?
It still has a function.
Absolutely.
I'm not too sure. I think the delivery might be a little bit different, but it's still, I think it's important. I think it's still there, to some degree.
There's some folks like stay away. Obviously, not the mainstream. Now, the mainstream's just a sludge factory.
Yeah.
But I think, and I do have concerns about the indie writing scene where everyone's jumping on a trend or a bandwagon trying to be part of a club. I think that's leading to apathy, where people are asking permission to write stuff because they're worried that their peers aren't going to like it, or they'll not get enough likes on the particular writing group that they're part of.
Yeah.
That's something to cautionary tale to watch out, folks. If you're looking to be a creator, don't worry about your peers. Worry about your fans, your customers.
Yes.
People are actually going to support you. Don't worry about what another person says, because at the end of the day, we can be supportive, but we're all competition, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's always somebody's going to have that slant, and you can pretend you don't, but we do. We all want our own projects to succeed.
Yep.
And it's that's another cautionary tale. Like, if you don't have that honesty with yourself, then you won't act accordingly, because you won't be aware of that skew in your brain.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes another person to tell you that you've got this problem or some sort of trait, you know, and then when you become consciously aware of it, then you can change it.
But is that not down to human connection again? Where
it is.
And we've had so many cautionary tales in horror about people that lose their human connection.
Yep.
Rapunzel being locked up in the tower, losing human connections, probably the worst thing can happen to you. And like I said, I'm a grumpy old shite, and even I recognize I need people in my life, because if you don't, you're going to absolutely drive yourself kookaburra. You're just going to go out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And unless you're a narcissist, and then you could have tons of people telling you, hey, you're wrong about this, you need to go in a different direction. But if you're a narcissist, you'll just say, you don't know, I know better. You know.
But someone like that has gone too far, because they haven't, once again, it's recognize that bit yourself. And if you don't recognize it in yourself, you can't get the help, or you can't adjust, or you can't compensate.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that human connection does show you that, oh, actually, I am a bit of a narcissist, or I have psychopathy, or I've got a mental illness, or, you know, whatever the fact be.
Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Love it.
Louis gets locked up in the coffin. That's his punishment, is to be locked up in a coffin and sealed into a wall, to have no contact whatsoever with any sort of person. Even Queen of the Damned.
Yes.
God, Lakeisha. Is it Lakeisha?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Lakeisha. Not, I said it right. The Queen herself. Aisha. Sorry.
Yeah.
Aisha was put in a coffin and dropped to the bottom of the ocean, and it drove her. No, it was her sister. Sorry, not Aisha. Her sister.
Yeah.
I can't remember her sister's name.
Oh, I've got the book sitting right there.
Yeah,
I can't even remember.
It was her sister. It was dropped in the ocean, and she went feral, like completely insane, from just the fact that complete isolation. That's always been a horror trait, a story. It's always been the most horrifying thing, to be cut off from everybody, because we need people. We need interaction. We not just even this. This is okay, but it's not living your life. You need flesh and blood. You need vital existence.
Yes.
This is a pseudo. This is a useful tool. But if this is your whole life, you're nothing but trouble ahead. That moral message has been told ad nauseum throughout horror.
Absolutely. The isolation factor. Yeah. And it's a great trope as well, you know, in the world of horror. It really is.
Yeah. Basically, you're being buried alive and unable to die. You know, having to feel and experience all of that time, and it just you come out, if you come out of it, you come out batshit crazy.
Yeah, broken. That's it. You know, no going back.
Yeah.
The people that preach online about I don't need people, I hate people, they're the ones that the minute they lose their internet connection fall apart in tears. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that person is on every group. We've all met them, haven't we?
I'm guilty of it myself.
Every group going, I don't need people. I am perfectly happy by myself. Every group they join, every platform, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same message. And then they're the ones that freak out the minute their connection gets cut off. So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
If they're
that's-
unfriended, they lose their mind.
Oh yes, I have had people, people I have never spoken to. There's people who've added me. I just had a clean out there recently, actually, because people just add me and I've never had interactions with them. And I'm like, okay, time for a right, because it's just I don't see the point.
Yeah.
And I've had people DM me like seconds after me hitting, seconds after hitting the unfollow button or unfriend. What have I done? I'm like, this is the first time. I mean, you actually see it. The first message ever.
They lose their minds.
Lose their shit. Yeah.
What was that one?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Is it Unfriended? Oh, there have been a couple of horrors about.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
unfriended. Yes.
I haven't seen that yet. Is that any good?
Yeah.
I haven't either, but the trailer I've seen makes it look pretty good. Yeah.
Need to look that one up.
Oh, I'm terrible with titles. I can't even remember if I actually ended up watching it, but I saw the trailer for it.
Yeah.
But that's just so true.
But
It
there's
really is.
here's the new modern. Like I said, it hasn't expired then because here's the new slew of horror movies about the social media age and how it can be damaging.
Yes.
And it's just going to
Some
evolve.
people
There's
can't
always
be-
that warning. Don't do it. Sorry.
Yep. Some people can't be helped. They can't be. Some people are just,
Yeah,
stupid.
but the warning's not for them. The warning's for you.
No.
How to
Yeah.
be careful. How to conduct yourself. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The next sci-fi horror is going to be AI. Artificial
Yes.
Well, that's been
intelligence.
from Asimov.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
you fall in love with a non-being, and then when you find out that this is just a computer animation, you lose your shit.
Oh God. Mm.
I can see that happening
We'll see it now with chatbots.
because, yeah,
See it with what?
yeah,
Chatbots.
Chat
Yep.
box.
Chat
Yeah,
bots.
they're the most rudimentary
Yes.
form, but they are getting more sophisticated.
oh my goodness,
They can
you
read your
can't tell real people from the chatbot. You really can't. Artificial intelligence has gone way over the edge with that.
It's worse than we actually think it is. Yeah.
Like I said, horror stories have warned of that.
Yeah, for how
Oh
many
yeah,
years?
there you go.
You know what I mean? Always be cautious.
They warned about robots how many
Yep.
years ago? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I am robot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I said, Isaac Asimov, the R. Daniel series.
Yep.
Didn't he do I Am Legend? I think he did. I think that was an Asimov story as well.
Matheson was I Am Legend.
Oh, sorry. There's another one he did. That was,
Asimov did I, Robot. What was that other one?
AI.
That was
Was it AI? No.
Haley Joel Osmond or whatever. What was that? I know Spielberg directed it. Was that not based on a?
I
Was
think
it
it was,
AI?
I think yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure.
He's
I
only
know
done a
AI.
handful. He's done tons of books. I've read his books,
Yeah.
but I know he's done a handful of movies. I keep forgetting the movies that have actually been brought out of his books. But he always told not just creating the robots, but dehumanizing them as well. If you create them to be human-like and then you dehumanize them, what's the point that
Yeah.
you cross the line and then it comes back to bite you?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, perfect. Even that sequel is pretty decent. A lot of people panned it. Now I don't like
Yeah.
Jared Leto in anything. I just think he's a horrible actor. Just don't relate to him. But that was a decent enough story.
Oh, he was good in Requiem for a Dream, though. That was pretty good. Requiem for a Dream.
Yes, I
I
agree.
liked him for the brief moment he was in American Psycho. It's like, yes.
Yes, wow.
Do you know why there's just somebody, I mean, I know he's got loads of fans and stuff, but you know why some people just don't land with you? Like, nah.
Yep.
But then there's some people I think are absolutely brilliant, and people go, what the hell do you like them for? I mean, that's the joys of having different tastes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like Hannibal Lecter.
Mhm.
You read the story Hannibal,
Yeah.
you don't want to like this guy, but you end up empathizing with him, you know.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that's the
Mm.
danger.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the
it is.
warning. Someone like that exists. They've got the charisma. They've got the passion. They've got the ability to hook you in.
Yep.
And that's
There, but
therefore
there, but
lies the
for the
war.
grace of God go I. That could be me. If under other circumstances, if I went through the same similar circumstances, that could be me. That's
Yep.
the warning.
That's right.
Yep, tons, absolutely tons. Is there a universal moral message in horror throughout, or is it just each story has its own particular whatever it's telling? Is there a universal moral message can be taken from the horror genre? Well, I think we'll finish up on that one because
True horror is what is inside us.
If you didn't have a moral to violate, you wouldn't have horror. If you weren't violating some moral or something like that, like thou shalt not kill. If you weren't violating that moral ethic, you wouldn't have a horror story.
it's true. Even I know they made it like 80 slashers made like promiscuous sex
Oh yeah, there
a
you
joke,
go.
right?
Yep.
But we are seeing today people not like being more depressed, more unhappy, younger than us
Yep.
because
Yep.
and they're trying to moralize it again because they've went too far and they've just got it all bent out of shape and more people now are unhappy,
And on antidepressants.
etc., and
Yep.
ending themselves. Yet
Yep.
it's being an old fuddy-duddy, you know, with your, and it's not even about the legality of marriage or anything else. It's find someone you at least have resonance with. The hookup culture, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
actually destroying people, and you see it because
Yeah.
they're not happy. If it was right, people would be happy, and they
Yep.
wouldn't have this need to lash out. But the fact is, it's not right because it's not leading to fulfillment, and that's not even a religious concept or anything else. Just basic of
No, that's
we're seeing it just as hookup with no emotional attachment or trying not to emotionally attach and people being disposable. You're seeing this
Yep.
deep unhappiness now of a generation that's known nothing else but it.
Yeah.
right.
That's
Um,
sad.
You're basically looking at other people as nothing. You're either predator or prey.
Yeah, commodity to be used for satisfaction, and it's empty.
Yeah.
And it's actually back down to the original horror of being isolated, that ultimate horror, I think, of that isolation, which is why it's always told in such a dramatic way and the fallout of that.
Yeah.
Genie in the Bottle, there's one of the earliest stories of isolation.
Genie in the bottle.
Yeah, Genie in the Bottle. So when when the genie comes out, I have been here for 1,000 years. I promised myself I'd kill the first person and not grant wishes because the last owner had actually got them back in. And was that a Sinbad story?
I think so.
Was that a Sinbad tale?
Yeah.
And it was Sinbad told him, tricked him to
yeah.
go back into the bottle again. And then he's like, I'll
Yeah.
grant you 1,000,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once
That's right.
again, there's the moral. No person's an island. You need others. You need other people in your life. You can't just charge through life not being considerate.
No.
But you
No.
can't be ruled either. You know what I mean? It's all salty. There's no black and white answer to everything. You know what I mean? That's why you got
Right.
shades of grey. But when
Yeah.
you try to whitewash over everything and not accept the horror and try and deny it actually exists, you're doomed.
Right.
That's it. Denying it's
That's
not
it.
there. Denial land.
Any
That'd
final
be a
thoughts?
Yeah.
place to live. Denial land. That's where a lot of people are
'Cause-
living at the moment.
Yeah. People like that old story about people that don't believe in ghosts, and they go to a haunted house and there's no such thing as ghosts, and then when the ghost actually shows up in their face, it's like, yeah.
We did warn you
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
we tried.
Yeah, we tried.
about it.
There you go.
There's
Horror authors. That should be our saying is,
Yeah.
hey,
We tried to warn you.
I tried to warn you.
Don't blame us. We tried.
That is brilliant. I love that, actually. Jane, Dale, thank you very much. This has been absolutely brilliant.
I love it.
I mean,
I love it.
this is every time I tackle one of these topics, I'm glad we're still able to do it with humor, because that's so important.
Absolutely.
So easy for these things to devolve into nothing, but they actually look at stuff and get that deeper meaning and have a friendly conversation, which I think's missing. We need more of it back in the world, honestly.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a warning in itself. For see where we're going when people are just trying to not see people as people, just as commodities, and everything we've talked about. We're seeing being played out today. And thanks for jumping in with us here. It's been brilliant.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we go, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yep, you can find me at Horror Central on Facebook or my YouTube channel. I've got stuff on there. Yep.
Facebook, Gene Baker.
Sweet. And of course, links will be in the description. And as always, thanks everyone for tuning in. Keep up to date with the channel. Do the type of clicky things. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.
Bye.